With the first generation of Apple Vision Pro, I think Apple focused on just selling people literally the vision of what spatial computing could be like. They dwelled a lot on here's how you interact with the device, tapping your fingers and just looking around with your eyes. And while the product itself was not that great a deal, and even Apple probably knows most people aren't buying it or shouldn't buy it, I think the next generation approach for Apple spatial computing tech should definitely be around not necessarily making the device as independent as Apple Vision Pro was, didn't even require any additional Apple products to work. Now, I think they could sell people a lot more on the comfort and convenience of what maybe using a spatial computing device on the go could really look like, even if it becomes heavily dependent on additional hardware. Let's begin. So the idea that really struck me as to what I think Apple should do next was with Meta actually opening up their R&D to this whole Orion project and showcasing that the glasses in the future might just be the displays. And Meta had you wear this wristband so that it could measure your hand positioning and exactly what your fingers are doing. And also this little side remote thing that was doing a lot of the offloading for imagery and processing, and it just casts that wirelessly to your glasses. But the more I thought about that little ecosystem that they were toying around with, the more it made me realize that Apple is kind of almost there already. They know that some of their biggest fans, biggest followers already have Apple Watches, and we've seen on the Series 9 and Series 10 that the Apple Watches have gotten very good at tracking finger motions and knowing when your fingers are actually tapping. And through accessibility features, we know that the Apple Watch can tell its, of course, orientation and which fingers are moving around. It's pretty insane how much it knows just from a few sensors reading your muscle movements in your arm. So what does all of that have to do with spatial computing? Well, it's more hardware that they could offload from Apple Vision Pro. Right now, they've got these giant big cameras on the bottom, specifically facing downwards just so they can do hand tracking, and that's it. If they could take that out, that would reduce the cost, reduce the complexity, and increase the battery life, because it's another thing that doesn't have to pull from your battery bank. And as we know, Meta and Snapchat are experimenting already with transparent displays. I think this could also substantially increase the battery life and reduce the processing power necessary for Apple head-mounted technology simply by not having to stitch together all of reality. That's what Apple Vision Pro has to do right now with all of these different cameras and LiDARs, simply because obviously you can't see through it. You are just looking at two little, very, very bright postage stamp-sized displays on the inside. And those little displays are actually the most expensive component in Vision Pro. So perhaps by moving to just having transparent displays that you can look through, but of course they can still add visuals on top of what you're looking through. That means less camera, less power draw, and likely not having to power as insanely detailed and extremely bright displays that you find in Apple Vision Pro. But of course, to interpret your surroundings and analyze hand motions or eye tracking, you're still going to need a decent amount of hardware. So to make a pair of Apple Vision glasses that would be this thin in this light is darn near impossible. And Meta knows this. Even with their fairly bulky glasses, they have a lot of the computational side of things being offloaded to this additional brick. But that's a huge advantage Apple has in this space. They already have very powerful, fairly large battery bricks in everybody's pocket already. It's just called the iPhone. So while this next generation product would still be compromised, just like how Apple Vision Pro was very much a compromise in many ways, I think simply by having a USB-C port on the back of one of these glasses so that the iPhone can do a lot of the processing and the iPhone becomes the battery bank, and because you don't have as many cameras to worry about, and because you'll have hand tracking being monitored by the Apple Watch, I could see a very real situation where Apple turns your iPhone into the processing brain for the glasses, and then just through a USB-C cable, and of course this would be a pro iPhone feature just to get more people to upgrade. Like if you're willing to buy the iPhone 17 Pro, that has, a fairly large battery on the inside and a USB-C port that can move data like crazy fast between what the glasses are interpreting, and this just becomes a really intricate, complicated iPhone accessory. I know that's not the ideal situation. We all want a wireless pair of glasses where you wouldn't have to fumble around with a cable going to your pocket, but But right now, we're already doing that with Apple Vision Pro because it has an external battery pack. And we need to get the power consumption of a spatial computing device much, much lower before an iPhone could actually power it, because right now the battery bank for Apple Vision Pro is actually quite large. But I think by offloading a lot of the sensors to additional accessories like the Apple Watch and not having to stitch together reality from scratch with all of these additional cameras, you could at least sell people on the idea on why in the future they may want to consider buying a pair of Apple glasses. And I think it would just become that much more immersive if you didn't have to worry about the eyesight display. That adds a lot of cost and complexity and eats into your battery life already. But if we just got more and more people on board with the idea of a regular pair of glasses that ever just so happens to run Vision OS and do all of these amazing things, then I think more people are going to get on board with this idea. And maybe it's not going to sell everybody right away. Maybe it's still a $2,000 accessory that also requires an Apple Watch and also requires an iPhone. But is that ultimately all that much different from what Apple's already doing with Apple Vision Pro for $3,500? You could make a pair of glasses for $2,000 and then iPhone 17 Pro. There's another $1,000, and then have an Apple Watch to do all the hand tracking stuff. That's an additional $500. But the experience might just be that much more immersive, and while simultaneously selling people on the future of spatial computing, you'd also be selling people on buying the latest iPhone, buying the latest Apple Watch, which we all know Apple's already having a hard time justifying people upgrading, and the chips in our iPhones are just getting absurdly quick year after year, and we keep asking ourselves, why do I need so much performance on a smartphone? I'm just taking pictures and scrolling social media. Why do we need the silicon inside these things to be so powerful? Well, an accessory like Vision OS powered glasses might take advantage of a lot of that power. This is the direction I hope Apple moves in the future, but what do you guys think? Should they focus more on doing mixed reality headsets like Apple Vision Pro, just smaller and cheaper, or do you think having a pair of glasses that offloads a lot of the hard work like the battery and the processing power and the user inputs to additional Apple accessories might sell more people on the Vision long term? Feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.